Ozzie, we're really excited to have you on board here. Robbie and I know a lot about you. Robbie's learned a little bit about you, but you are the example of the American dream, brother. I mean, you've done so much in your life that many of us will be, wish we could do. If there's one thing I'll miss in my life is never serving. I admire people like you that have the guts to serve and take yourself out of especially when you're an entrepreneur like you, to take yourself out of the picture of building something in entrepreneurship to serve your country is an amazing thing. And you've done a lot of that. And I want you to tell your story from the beginning as a kid, what happened, where you came from and all that. But Ozzie, introduce yourself and just a couple sentences of who is Ozzie, just basically who are you, bud?
Yeah. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, guys, for having me. It's a pleasure. Gary, it's been a great pleasure to know you. You're just such a great person and an individual, and the more I learn about you, the more things you do. You're just such a giving person. So nice. Anything I can do to support you, brother. Anyways, Ozzie Giglio, I'm the CEO of Windy City Fox Motorsports. We started the company about 20 years ago, 2000, and bought our first location in 2001. And, live in Hinsdale, Illinois with my wife, Jill, and our two little babies, twins at 2.5. And that's it, man. That's me.
And so Ozzie, and you know what, I want to, if you could tell your story from the beginning. I know your work ethic is incredible. Your love for America is incredible. Tell me what built those values. When you're growing up, how did you think? And who gave you these values? Where did they come from? And tell us about that.
Yeah, I grew up in the near western suburbs, and Berwyn and Oak Park, and my dad was a middle management guy at a small company, and everything he did was about working. I mean, my dad worked from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, and the focus in our household was hard work and education. I mean, it was all about getting an education, being committed, working hard. And we came from a family of what I would call patriots. My uncles were all World War II veterans on both sides, and we just were a working family. It was a hard-working family. And I think that experience, and, we didn't have a great deal. I don't think, but I never remembered being deprived or poor or anything like that. And in fact, when it came to, for example, sports, I always had everything I needed, the best glove, the best bat, the best skates. But my parents were tremendously committed to their children, but making them understand the value of everything that they were given. So I think that was a big part of growing up, was just the focus on hard work, education, and really being committed to your family and doing the right thing. And I think that's instilled in you at a very early age. My father would always talk about work, right? And the fact that it's important, and we've got to provide for our family. And, I want to be at your baseball game, and I'm going to get there early, but I got to go back to work. And those are the kind of things that really resonated with me at an early age. And I don't think that I would be the person I am today. And both my mother and father were like that. And so my mother supported my father working. And I think that was something that, sometimes you don't see. And if you don't have that kind of support at home, I think it's really difficult to really commit yourself to things. And again, it wasn't like, we were very wealthy or had a lot of money, but he was committed to making sure that, you were going to get an education. I went to a private high school. I went to Fenwick High School. And I remember this, and, it's like my high school, it cost $1,000 a year to go to Fenwick when I went to Fenwick. Now, in today's dollars, I think it's about $20,000 a year to go to Fenwick. And so that's a lot of money when you're in a lower middle class family. And so those kinds of commitments, my family made when we were very young. And I think that was the kind of stuff that it just was part of my fiber. So there was no other way for me. And I think even in the neighborhood that we lived in, people were just like that. They just worked hard.
How many kids in your family, Oz?
There was just me and my sister. So, and you've met my sister Patty. So,
yeah.
My sister, is 5 years older than me, and I think grew up in the same environment. She was, that's a different day and age, and so I can say this. She was a girl, so I think that she was a little bit more protected. I was a guy, so get out there. My first job, I had 3 jobs as my first job. So I pumped gas. I worked in a gas station, and I go back to those days, and I pumped gas, and I had these little mentors along the way. So the guy that I worked for when I was pumping gas, I would bring my homework to the gas station because I was working at night, and he caught me doing my homework one night, and I thought, man, this guy's just going to fire me. And he came over to me and he said, I love the fact that you're doing your homework while you're here. And, he kind of made it very important to me. I mean, he didn't know anything about my family. I just got hired. I walked in off the street. But he was so supportive of education that reinforced everything my family always reinforced about education, was that education had to come first. And it was one of those things that was going to take you through the rest of your life.
Right.
And it was a great experience for me. And it was pumping gas and cutting grass, and then I was a lifeguard. So that was kind of fun too.
So gas, grass, and beaches.
Yeah, well, pools, but yeah.
Oh, pools. All right. Well, gas, grass, and bikinis.
Bikinis. That's right. So that was kind of, that was, and going to Fenwick, I think was, Fenwick was a tremendous game changer, I think, for as a young man. And at the time, Fenwick was all boys, so it wasn't, it wasn't even really a choice for me. It was sort of directed, and so I went to Fenwick and kind of not really knowing what to expect, and it really was a strict Catholic upbringing. But again, focus on hard work and sports. And sports was, a big part of being at Fenwick. And if you were not part of the sports program at Fenwick, you were kind of missing half of what was going on at the school. And I think that sports, integrated into my life really made you focus on teammates and teamwork, which is a big part of the military, and really being committed to hard work. And that all played together to kind of, I think, shape the rest of my life was my education at Fenwick. And, I think if you look around today, I'm not gonna stamp the chest for Fenwick, but I mean, there's a great many of our local and national leaders who graduated from Fenwick or schools like Fenwick. And I think that they create a real terrific environment for our young men and women today. So,
what sports did you play, Oz?
I played hockey for a couple of years, and I played baseball for 4 years.
All right.
Yeah. So I loved the sporting, the sports life, and being a part of the team and being a contributing member of an organization was a big, that was a big thing. That camaraderie is a big part of, I think, of people's lives. And I think that being on sports teams really develops that in a big way.
And that's where you got your golf swing then, huh, dude? I mean, you're a natural athlete with the hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
I
definitely think I got my golf swing from hockey. That's for sure.
That's a good thing. Hockey players that I play golf with are usually naturally way better than I am. And I know you got some of that. That's cool. All right, now, so what inspired you to go from school then? And did you go directly in the military, or did you go to college first?
No, I went to college, and then I went to law school. And then, again, it's you gotta put yourself in the perspective of the time period. We're talking about the greedy 80s right? So as you get into college and stuff, the 80s were a greedy period of time. So I thought that, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be, and I read some of your questions too, and I have my own advice. So I wanted, this path that I wanted to be on. Again, education was important. So, for me, going to college, going to law school, and then being a lawyer, and so that was probably developed in my freshman or sophomore year in high school. So I went to college, and in my second or third year in college, I really don't remember this. These Marine recruiters came to the university, and they were talking to people, and you kind of, I think some of these things are seeds that get planted over a long period of time. And, some of the guys that I was with were, they went into the Marine Corps summer program in college, because you could do that at the time. The Marines had a program then. And, I was too busy really focusing on playing baseball. I mean, I would play baseball in school, and then I would play summer ball, with the Melrose Park Eagles, which were like a semi-pro team, and the Valparaiso Blues, these little semi-pro teams that were really comprised of people who were out of college and in college. And it was pretty big baseball at the time. And then, I also played very competitive softball. So, my life at that point was really committed to the sport of baseball. And so I didn't want to divert any attention. So then, then I went to law school, and that's when I really started to focus on, maybe I ought to think about doing something a little bit more focused, at least for a period of time. Graduated from law school, went to work for a couple of years, and then decided to go into the military. And so I went in late. I was a late bloomer, and I think everything I've kind of done in life, including having kids, has been a little bit later, but it's kind of been on my own schedule. So, I was more mature. I had a different attitude. Some of the officers that were my peers, my peers were, 4 years, 5 years younger than me, which is not a big deal, but at the time it's a pretty big deal, because that 5 years of maturity gives you gives you a different perspective on life, and so. Yeah, I mean, it made a big difference for me.
How long were you in the military?
Well, you do I've been in for 32 years now in total, active and reserve. And so, I went in as a reserve officer, so I didn't go to the academy. So you go in as a reserve officer, and I went on periods of active duty, and then back into reserves, and active duty, and then the reserves. And so, it's kind of it's a mixed career, but it gave me sort of the luxury of spending time as a civilian, and then spending time as a committed committed military officer.